Okay, Stud Talk. It's our sixth one. Can y'all believe that? And we've got a new trend. We're going on Wednesday nights, which I'm very excited about. And our guest tonight is Will Hutcheson. And if you're not following him yet, then you're crazy. You need to start following him on Instagram immediately. Beautiful photos, very, very attractive man. And I really look forward to catching up with him in a little bit. Let's get to some of y'all's questions. This is from Ricky. Thank you, Ricky. What is your favorite vacation spot and what do you like to do when you're there? It was very difficult for me to try to hone in on a favorites on this one. And so I did have to pick more than one place. And all of these are,
I figure you would.
all of these are amateur photos. And so y'all should get really excited about that. Y'all are so dirty minded. You thought I was talking about something else, I'm sure. So on the left is Vegas. I love Vegas. I've been there a handful of times. I'm at Caesar's Palace in 2019. On the top right is Ocean Isle Beach, North Carolina, where I've been every summer, almost every summer for a week or so with my family since I was a little baby. And on the bottom right is New York City. I was in New York right pre-pandemic, January before it all went down. So it hasn't been a terribly long time, but I'm like really itching to get back. New York is also very photographer rich, right? So I get to mix in some fun business. And I'm excited to talk with Will about some of his photographers this evening. One thing about the Vegas trip that I showed y'all a picture of, I am very close with my mom. That's why I probably had that picture. And by the way, that Ocean Isle Beach picture is probably 14 years old, and the New York one is probably 10 or something like that. So those were a while ago. But my mom and I are very close, and every now and then we take a mom-son trip, just the two of us. And so we've been to Vegas twice. We've been to DC, we've been to New Orleans, just lots of, it's very hard to hang out with just her when a lot of other family is around. And so I'm kind of selfish and take her off for a weekend. We try to do once a year, so we need to plan our next one. From Jim, okay, so as you select the speakers or star, I love how you called them star, to appear each week, what do you look for that sparks an invite to them? That is an awesome, awesome question. Thank you for that. There's a lot of things. Obviously, I really prize diversity. In fact, I'm very much excited about our June lineup. Next week is John Zoo. I don't know if y'all have seen his pictures, but he's super amazing. The following week is Matt Ray, who's like this amazing daddy type from California. I love him. So diversity is one thing, but then here's the photos I picked. These are about our guests tonight. So obviously very beautiful, and I'm attracted to them, and they're very, very beautiful. But look at these captions. I like guests that I can sort of tell are funny. And one of the indicators of that, I think, is how they frame their photograph that's really sexy or whatever. And when they inject humor into it, that's my favorite part. I don't know if y'all think that way, but it's just such an add-on when you can tell that the person has kind of a dynamic personality through the use of humor or a story. I did a whole YouTube episode. Y'all should watch that on captions. It's a long one though. I would say the majority of the guys that I have asked, I have sort of bantered back and forth with a little bit. There's been a couple of straight up cold asks. I just started kind of following them, and that was a little intimidating to ask them to be on this Zoom talk show. But it's gone okay. But otherwise, I will say I've sort of had a friendly, Instagram relationship for a little bit of time. So they would know who I am and probably would have seen when I was considering posing nude and the whole thing, I'd interacted with him for many years. Like we weren't close friends, but there was certainly a level of comfort there where I just thought it would be nice to work with him. And so, and the deal is, I'll tell the story. So I was turning 40, and I'm sure there was some midlife crisis happening somewhere. But kind of the prior year, I got it in my head that I really wanted to get in the best shape of my life. I have never really, like I've always been a fit person. I was an athlete growing up, but especially as an adult, never really tried hard. Like you would sort of exercise, but never really tried to like nail it with the abs and the whole thing. So I get it in my head that I'm gonna do it. And I diligently, and at the beginning, there was no idea about the photographer or like photography at all, like not planned at all. But I had some results. Like I definitely got, you saw the picture, like the one with the hose and the whole thing. Like, yeah, I did not expect my body to ever in my entire life look like that.
They both have hoses in them. Anyway.
Well, I know you did. The front one.
Got it.
That the definition is really kind of popping on that one. And I've got a little side story about that photograph. So because I was surprised and so pleased with my progress and the whole thing, I was like, I have got to get some photos of this situation so that when I'm like, I don't know, 75 or older, I can like look back and be like, hey, damn, like you really nailed it. Like you had that for a while. And so I hired Evan, the most professional experience ever. Like this guy's got like a team and the whole thing and a beautiful photography studio. And actually both of those that I showed you were at my former home. So that was in between the two buildings. Like we ran an art gallery out of our home. So if you're looking at those photos, excuse me, on the right was kind of the main building and main gallery. And then on the left, like the one I was kind of leaning against in one of them, that's a separate building that we finished construction on in 2014 that was in honor of the artists in our mentorship program. So on our property, they had their own studios and gallery. And so for purposes of our program, it was kind of like a training center because we were really coaching them on how to sell their artwork on their own. So that I'm going way off track, but I'm proud of telling y'all about the meaning of that building on the left, especially because we fundraised to build it. It was a big deal. We eventually formed a nonprofit to fund and manage the mentorship program. That's one of my really favorite accomplishments. It was kind of a big deal. So he shot me there. Then he shot me at his studio. I loved all the pictures. I would say I much preferred the ones at the home, like in a more natural setting. And maybe y'all have seen that now through a lot of my shoots. I really do prefer more like an Airbnb or whatever. I've done the straight up studio a couple of times. I don't know, maybe it's my age, maybe I don't know what it is. Like I just think in a more natural setting, I prefer those pictures. So then he does all the photos, and the way it works kind of these days, or I've done a bunch of these shoots now, like the guys will, or it's all very different, but they'll send them to you to kind of look at via Dropbox or WeTransfer or something like that, all of your photographs. With Evan, it was this whole like state-of-the-art sort of big screen where like he did this exercise with you where you were like, yes, no, blah, blah, blah. And then you eventually narrowed it down. And I really think in totality, I think I maybe got a dozen or so photographs. And I'm not going to tell you the amount of money that I paid for that situation, but it was, maybe like 3 times as much as I paid for my first car. So like, now that was a used 83 Honda Civic. So, all right, here we go. Y'all, this is week 6 of Stud Talk, featuring Will Hutcheson. And as I mentioned before, if you're not following him on Instagram, you're completely crazy. You need to make sure that's happening immediately. Will, can I ask you about this photograph? Tell us a little bit about it. Where were you?
So this is my friend Kelly, who I've shot with a few times. He lives up in Inwood, if you're familiar with the geography of New York City. That's way up there at the top of the Manhattan Island.
Where I used to live.
And so he uses this photo. Actually is from a digital photo, but he actually usually takes photos like old school style. So like silver, like classic shutter like thing over the face. You have to stand still for like 20 seconds, 30 seconds for it to get the exposure. He's got a lot of really cool lenses, all sorts of crazy stuff, and it's like actual like black and white photography and lenses from like the early 1900s, 1920s. So very cool stuff. But this is actually one of the digital ones, and this is from his little mini studio he's got up in his hood.
So that's why first of all, it's a gorgeous photo, and that's why I wanted to put it on here. Actually, Will, this is when I'm trying to rally the troops to kind of join for this evening. This is the photo I used. I was like, y'all don't want to miss this.
We got intense wrong.
But so I am a big fan of him, like definitely on the photographer wish list for sure. And I thought this one was different because, like you described, most of his look, they have a special aesthetic to them that does look like it's older. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally I forget. It's silver. Whatchamacallit, like pictures, and so like. We're there for probably like, an hour and a half, 2 hours, like a normal session, but it's only 20 shots. So, and that's like the max. Sometimes like maybe only 15 just because it takes so long to load. And then you have to take it out, get the exposure and put it back in. And I posted one not too long ago because he's really like, as you know, very talented.
Yeah.
We actually had one where we accidentally did it twice and it was a double exposure. So that could happen too.
I did see that. Very cool. You sound like you have fond memories of childhood. How was coming out for you? What was that like?
There was not a large gay population in my high school, for sure. I think it was like me and a couple other people. I came out when I was 16 to my mother, who was not surprised. And then I came out to my father about like a year later, only because my mom was like worried how he would react. And then I came home one night and apparently like my mom had told him, which was not what she was supposed to do. But he like was like sobbing. It was like, I accept you. I had like, I think that's actually part of the reason why I am so full on about the California Center, is because I am so grateful and for my family, and I've interacted with a lot of people and have people very close to myself that were kicked out, that were homeless. I have quite a few friends that were Mormon, that were formerly Mormon, and were kicked out of their house just for saying that they were gay. A lot of friends that I know have been to treatment for being gay. So it's I every day and every single time I watch some kind of like coming out movie or gay story, I always like text my mom and tell her how thankful I am.
Tell us about how you pivoted a little bit during the pandemic to kind of still make the fitness stuff work.
Yeah, like I said, I was very much use whatever you've got, right? So I was doing a lot of in-person training for a couple companies and then also on my own, and all those places closed, right? One of the places I started working for the weekend of the pandemic. So I taught about 3 classes and then the next day it was like, oh, we're shut down. And that just recently opened up again. So this whole time I've actually had to pivot to mostly online personal training. So That's been an adventure, but actually has benefited me in the long run. Now I have more clients than before the pandemic, just because people have been keeping up with me online, and it's a great accountability thing for them and me. And it's a lot easier to force yourself to wake up at 7 a.m. in the morning when you know you're working out at 7:30, as opposed to working out or waking up at like 6 in the morning to go work out at 7:30. And you don't have to go anywhere. You just have to turn on your camera.
I've been asking a number of our guests, just pandemic, big picture. What's kind of your major takeaways from that whole experience?
I think my big major takeaway is, first of all, giving everybody more chances. I know that may not resonate right away, but realizing that everybody is going through something, right?
Yeah.
And giving people more chances, I think, for sure. Like if someone doesn't respond to your text, if your friend isn't hitting you back up when you ask if you want to hang out for the weekend, don't get angry at them, right? And I think that's a mantra that I've really tried to take on throughout this year, is to give everybody lots and lots of chances. And even though I've been burned by it before, trying to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Yeah, and I think that's kind of how I always want to live my life.
Here is our first one. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, I can see it.
So our guests know that Tate is one of my favorites. Can you tell me how y'all met? What's going on here in the photo? Any memories?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. Tate's fantastic. They're a great photographer. And yeah, he had I think it was wasn't at the Standard. It was somewhere, I believe in Midtown or maybe Chelsea. And it was, a whole bunch of fun.
Yeah. I want to say you would have, I'm sorry, I just pulled these today. I think it was the Standard, because that sounds familiar to where you would have tagged it. So I've been in this head thing.
Yeah, it smelled like a lot of people had.
I thought that kind of too, but it didn't bother me actually. But did you have a positive experience communicating with him, even though he's deaf?
I have a couple relatives. Unfortunately, I only know like very little sign language. So I had a fine time communicating with him. I found it sometimes easier to communicate with him than other people who have the full functionality of hearing. But yeah, I mean, it's always new and exciting, right? When you are trying to communicate in a different way than you are normally accustomed to. It definitely sets some brain neurons that you don't normally use, forced to work a different way, but we communicated just fine. Yeah.
So it's a loaded question, because I just love to always brag on him. And it's like, because I've shot with him maybe 5 times now.
Wow.
We have a level of communication that is greater than with other speaking people. Like I feel it the way he communicates overall and gives direction, and like I can follow it so easily, and we're really in sync. And so I love that about him.
Yeah. Him and I were a little less in sync and a little bit more in shower. Or in bath.
Bath, yeah. Who's that? Who is that lady?
That's my mom. I finally got this is from a couple weeks ago, and I finally got to see her after, not seeing her. I saw her right before the pandemic. We were in Arizona visiting some family, and that was like, March 12th or whatever, and then came back and no more travel. So she was actually randomly in Pennsylvania, and she was like, "Oh, I'm only 2 hours away from New York City. Wish I would have known, and we could have met up." And I was like, "Well, I'm off of work tomorrow," so I took a train out to New Jersey, and we met up there, and it's great.
If you were listening from the beginning, a couple of people shared about reunions over the Memorial Day weekend, and I love when people talk about those and share photos, because it's been really long, actually.
Oh yeah, I am so happy for technology and the ability to do a video chat. It made it seem like it was not that long. And then my mom has been so kind to like join in on some of my exercise classes, which has been fun, and just all sorts of silly stuff. She's been on. I do streaming on Twitch. And I actually talked her into how to set up a Twitch. So sometimes she watches me play video games on there.
Oh, nice.
Then it's very silly. Shout out to that. After this, twitch.tv/shiftycritter. I'll be shooting some young children in Call of Duty.
Oh, nice. Shout outs are welcome here of any kind. And I've taken you long, Will. It's a little bit past 8. Thank you so much for the stories and for being here. I do always kind of like to ask our guests is maybe sort of a final question. If there are guys out there who are considering doing this whole thing that we do and sharing the sexy photos and having that type of Instagram account, what would your best advice be for them?
I would say start a Twitter. I actually, the reason I started doing this, it was kind of a joke about 5 years ago. I believe you would never know from my Instagram, but I actually had, and still do suffer a bit from like body dysmorphia. And I was always the kid at swimming pools who like had full on shirt on in the pool, like, and that was like all through my teenage years. And I was like a chubby kid too. And so I didn't really like start to lean out until high school. And I am definitely in the best shape of my entire life right now at 33. But that it was more of an idea for me to get over the idea of taking my clothes off, really. Yeah. That's kind of the whole reason that started. The most difficult thing for me still to get over in the industry, Ricky, is that idea that I need to look a certain way. I just had a shoot for on Fire Island for this thing called the Underwear Party, and so I'm like one of the poster boys for that, but I was the only person with body hair in all of it. And that was once again like, oh, right. I don't need to shave my body hair. I don't need to trim my body hair. I don't need to change my body to look a certain way unless it's going to make me feel happy. And I don't want that happiness to extend from a place where it is happiness because I'm looking like someone else. Like if my body hair is annoying me because it's getting stuck in my Velcro, that's one thing. Yeah. But if it's, if it's because I need to have like a shiny pecs, I'm over it.
I might speak for all of our guests when I say, please don't get rid of the hair. Like, don't ever think about that. No, it's so sexy. No, that's one of the top. One of the things I love about your photos is the fuzz for sure.
Yeah, well, it's not just that. It's like, having to look a certain way. And especially progressing on in my fitness journey and my nutrition journey, I diet before photo shoots, and I am very clear with everybody, especially with my trainers. Like I don't, the people I'm training, I don't have a 6-pack like 99% of the time. I have to diet in order to do that, and it's not a sustainable diet. Yeah. It's not a diet that I recommend people do, and that's what you have to do to look that way. So when you're living in a world of people that are like face tuning and doing all these things, that is literally a lot of times unachievable. And if there's one thing I could tell, especially to the youth of America and the world, is that not to try to look like people's Instagrams.
Yeah. Very, very good advice. And final thoughts, I would say we're way past 8, but guys, you're muted. Y'all give it up for Will. Thank you so much for joining us.